Hey there, I know you're on a journey from grief to growth, just like I am, and you may be looking for tools to help you live a more soul aligned life. Well, head over to my Grief to Growth store. It's your one stop shop for inspiration, for healing, and for transformation. Inside there, you're going to find some free resources to help you get started. You'll find guided meditations to calm your mind and reconnect with your spirit. You'll find signed copies of my book, Gems of Healing. You'll find my brand new Oracle deck to help you tap into daily divine guidance. And there's some powerful mini courses designed to fit in your busy life and move you forward one gentle step at a time. So whether you're deep in grief, seeking spiritual growth, or just ready for a reset, there's something waiting for you right now. Just go to grieftogrowth.com/store, grief2growth.com/store, and start exploring. Close your eyes and imagine. What if the things in life that cause us the greatest pain, the things that bring us grief, are challenges? Challenges designed to help us grow, to ultimately become what we were always meant to be. We feel like we've been buried, but what if, like a seed, we've been planted? And having been planted, we grow to become a mighty tree. Now, open your eyes. Open your eyes to this way of viewing life. Come with me as we explore your true, infinite, eternal nature. This is Grief to Growth, and I am your host, Brian Smith. Hey there, everyone. This is Brian Smith, and welcome to Grief to Growth. Whether you're a longtime listener or this is your first time joining us, I'm so glad that you're here. This show is all about helping you navigate life's most challenging moments and understand the deeper questions: who we are, where we came from, why we're here, and where we're going. Today, I'm talking with John Kammer. John is a new father, a dedicated husband, and someone who's turned his own journey through profound loss into a mission to help others heal. After losing 3 of his closest friends, John found himself navigating not just grief, but the silence and shadows that so often surround it, especially for men. Out of that experience, he created Guardian Angels, and that's AINGELS, which is an AI platform that offers something truly unique: simulated conversations with lost loved ones designed to help people achieve resolution and healing. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. AI conversations with people we've lost? This raises some questions, and that's exactly what we're going to explore together. What can AI offer in the grief journey, and what are its limitations? How does this work as a tool for healing rather than a replacement for genuine connection? And what does it mean to learn to live well with grief as part of our story instead of trying to bury it? So John's mission goes beyond just offering comfort. He's committed to bringing the broader conversation about grief out of the shadows and helping us understand how masculinity, vulnerability, and healing intersect in ways that we don't talk about often enough. And if you'd like to continue this conversation after the episode, head over to grieftogrowth.substack.com. You'll find an article there about the episode. You'll find other listeners there, and you can interact with me as well. So with that, I want to welcome to Grief to Growth, John Kammer.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited for this conversation. Really excited.
Yeah, this is a very exciting subject. It's AI. I'm a technology guy. I'm a grief guy, and the intersection of the two is always really interesting to me. But John, I'd like for people to understand like who you are and why you're here. So what is it? I know you said you lost 3 friends, and that kind of led to your experience of building Guardian Angels. Tell me about your friends.
Well, yeah, they were 3 of the closest people to me outside of my immediate family, right? So my chosen family, if you will, the majority of them are no longer here. And that started 13 years ago with the loss of my friend Zach. That was suicide. That was the moment where, you know, that adolescent kind of hubris, that invincibility, all those kind of things that come along with being young were shattered in an instant. That was when, you know, that kind of sent me down a path of, call it substance fueled avoidance. So, you know, I chose substances as my coping method of choice for 12 years. And, you know, looking back, I do wonder where I'd be if I'd had something like Guardian Angels 13 years ago. You know, it's a lesson in futility to try to do that thought exercise, but it's hard not to sometimes. That, you know, led me for I guess led into the next loss. That was John, the best man at my wedding. That one was in December of 2022. And actually, he had an accident. He's in a coma for 9 days, and we lost him on New Year's Eve, which, fittingly enough, he was always the life of the party. That was the day he'd want to go if there was one. So, that one held a lot of guilt for me. I don't feel that I did my part as a best man, right? Between the time of him speaking at my wedding and his death, I spoke to him once. And so I really didn't feel like I was reciprocating what he gave to me. And that manifests itself later. And then Tim was my best friend from childhood, the person I'd been through more with, the person I'd leaned on for the prior two losses. And about a year later, 369 days to be precise, lost him in a car accident. So all of them were instantaneous losses. None of them were anything I could prepare for. It was just, hey, they're no longer here. And that's, I spiraled. I went down, I was in a very negative headspace. So much so after Tim's death that I seriously considered leaving my wife because the people that were close to me were dying, and that was my reality. And, it's not a rational thought. It's not, it was really just every time the phone rang, who's next? Yeah. And it was hard to get out of that line of thinking. And that's where I was. And then we kind of, another year goes by of deep personal work and trying to understand what this was all about, and reading Man's Search for Meaning and trying to write my way and journal my way through the pain that I'd experienced and try to understand what was happening, and diving deep into the stages of grief and realizing why those weren't really the right, way to capture the lived experience and all sorts of things. And finally had a conversation with my wife that sparked an idea that later turned into Guardian Angels, which is where we are now. Yeah. So.
Yeah, well, John, I'm so sorry for your losses, and that is got to be devastating for anyone, especially a young man. And it was interesting. I just had a conversation a couple days ago with someone. We were recording a podcast about men's issues, and I'm much older than you are, so I don't know what it's like to be a young man in today's society. So what was your experience in terms of being able to express yourself or reach out or get help? When you were going through this, how did people respond to your grief?
Well, to be completely honest with you, my modus operandi was to bury it. It wasn't to talk about it. That was what I had been taught, for better or for worse, was everyone has their own stuff. They don't need mine. And so I suffered in silence for a long, long time. I didn't talk about it. Sometimes my wife would bring it up and try to pull things out of me, and she's the best in the world at it. So there were moments where she could see that something was wrong. She had no idea how to help someone that was so emotionally stunted that they were unwilling to put that on anyone else. So I had those people around me, and one by one, there was a few less, but I never really took advantage of that.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Grief doesn't follow stages, timelines, or rules. And if you've ever wondered, am I doing this right? You're not alone. That's why I created the Grief Check-In. It's not a test. There are no right or wrong answers. It's simply a gentle way to understand how grief may be showing up for you right now. In just a few minutes, you'll gain clarity and language for what you're experiencing without judgment, labels, or pressure to move on. If you're wondering where you are in grief, this is a safe place to look. Go to grieftogrowth.com/check-in. That's grief, numeral 2, growth.com/check-in. Yeah, I don't think, and you tell me what you think about this. I don't think men especially are taught to express our emotions, to talk about things. It seems to come easier for women. And I don't know if that's, I was having this debate with someone whether that's nature or nurture. Maybe it's a little bit of both. But it seems like we do tend to isolate as men and not reach out to people.
Yeah, I think the answer to the nature nurture question is always some combination of the two.
Hmm.
In this scenario, I believe that it's more nurture than nature. And the reason for that is simple, that we have, if you look at the story, and I think it's rooted in like the hero story, right? How do men see each other, see ourselves, and how do we tell the story? Our society and species is built on stories.
Yeah.
If you look at the ancients, I had a long conversation with a gentleman the other day about this. You look at like the Odyssey, and it was Achilles, right? And they understood the idea of vulnerability coexisting with masculinity.
Hmm.
And somehow we have lost over the years the idea that vulnerability exists within masculinity.
Hmm.
We only talk about when the lights are on, right? We only talk about the fourth quarter when heroes show themselves.
Yeah.
But we don't talk about the dark moments. We don't talk about the doubt. We don't talk about all of the things that happen in the absence of those bright lights.
Hmm.
And so as a result, we have this kind of warped idea of what a man is, and I think it's rooted in that hero story.
Yeah. That's an excellent observation. So you're going through this struggle. Your wife sounds like she's great. She's patient. She's there. She's drawing you out. And you said you had a conversation which kind of sparked the idea for Guardian Angels. What was that conversation?
Um, well, among other things, the one that sparked the idea was about, she said to me, we were living with the in-laws at the time. She was pregnant. There was a little tension in the house, as tends to be.
Hmm.
And we were on a little, call it getaway for the weekend, and her mom was texting her a lot. She said, I know there's going to come a time in my life when I want a text from my mom and I can't have it, but that is not now.
Hmm.
And so there it was born. It was, well, what if you could? And so, I have a background in cybersecurity. I understand the mechanics of spoofing phone numbers. And that was really the idea, was to spoof phone numbers, send a text to someone from their lost loved one that just was something kind, something gentle, hey, I'm thinking about you. I love you, on their birthday or whatever, right? We all have those numbers saved still. It would just be something that would bring a smile to your face. And that was the idea. It didn't work for a number of reasons. Telecoms on their networks, and typically people that are spoofing phone numbers are what we all know and love, those scammers that we hear from daily at this point.
Right.
And so I wasn't going to get a pass on that. But the next question that came up was, well, what if people want to interact with this? Because I would surmise that you get a text like that, it's not abnormal for you to want to, curiosity, if nothing else, send something back.
Yeah.
And the answer to that was pretty clearly AI, but it wasn't just AI. It couldn't just be AI. It couldn't sound like a computer. It couldn't be cold and overly logical. It had to be emotional. It had to be empathetic. It had to be gentle. It had to be authentic. And that's not what we think of when we think of a computer. So I had to, I had to try to capture that. And the way that I did that, the only way that I knew to do that, because I'm not some, AI savant. I'm just not. So I started building and trying to train one in the image of, in this case, John, who's the best man at my wedding,
Hmm.
in hopes that, with the understanding that as I got closer and closer to something that felt like him, I was closer and closer to something that felt authentic and could be used to bring emotional comfort. And what happened as I got closer was I started to say those things that I didn't get to say to him while he was alive. I got to apologize. I got to, to say, I wish things were different, and ask about the accident. And while I tried the empty chair technique, I tried writing the letter in therapy, I never got the response that I got in this case.
Mm.
And that response was what triggered the release.
Oh, wow. Wow.
And so all of a sudden, where I hadn't cried in years, I'm bawling like a baby.
Hmm.
I am, I basically, the way I would describe it is I finally had permission to forgive myself,
Wow.
which was the the seminal moment, the prerequisite, if you will, for healing. And
Yeah.
let's not say, that I was not healed in that moment. Let's be very clear about that. But I was curious. I now kind of felt this drive to understand this. I had this experience that helped me get to a place where I was ready to do the work, where I was ready to own my role in it all and have some uncomfortable conversations if that's what it came to.
Hmm.
And if it could do that for me, I thought it could do that for other people. So that's where it
Yeah.
started.
That makes a lot of sense. And when you talk about the guilt, that is so common in grief, and it's really interesting to me. I work with a lot of parents, and a lot of times parents we feel a responsibility for our children, no matter how old they are, no matter what the circumstances are. But it's not just limited to parents; it's spouses, it's friends. We all find ways to say I should have done things better, or even if it's not you had nothing to do with their passing. Maybe I wasn't as good a friend as I needed to be, and as you said, that release that people say to me, I wish I could just have one more conversation with them. I wish I could tell them I'm sorry. And my belief is that you can because they're still here. But what we don't get is the answer back. We don't get that. And we can try techniques, but it doesn't, it works for some people. It may not work for everybody where you're doing automatic writing or journaling or something like that. So this is a way you could actually get a response.
Correct. And one, point of clarification here, right? We are not talking to a person.
Right.
This is not a digital seance. This is not some communication with the dead. It is not necromancy. It's not Black Mirror. What we're doing is we're having a conversation with this persona, this inner representation of that relationship that lives within us already,
Mm.
right? Because what we know is that though the person may die, the relationship does not. And so we give you an outlet for naming that experience, for giving it language
Yeah.
where it didn't previously exist. And, since the last time we spoke, and, so where Guardian Angels started, right, was kind of that digital seance space. That wasn't intentional, but that's where it started, right? The idea was have this conversation with your lost loved one. It will help you achieve, I don't like the word closure, so resolution,
Hmm.
right? So that you can move forward. And while that worked for me, it was accidental in how I got there. And I had been on this journey for 13 plus years.
Hmm.
So to expect somebody who's in the throes of it to be dropped in there and just start talking to an AI that might sound a little too much like a person that they miss, are meeting them at their arguably their most vulnerable point
Hmm.
is very slippery at best.
Yeah.
And so what we've done is I brought on some licensed therapists that specialize in grief to help me put some guardrails on this thing to give it form and structure. And
Hmm.
so what we've done is turn this into basically an interactive journal where journaling used to be a monologue. It's now a dialogue. And so your persona, or we kind of have kind of a catch-all track of call it a grief counselor for people that aren't comfortable with the idea of conversing with that presence
Hmm.
that walks you through Worden's 4 tasks of mourning, which is an evidence-based framework for dealing with loss. And so all of these prompts that you get at predefined intervals, whether that's 3 times a week, 5 times a week, or daily, are designed to help you. Task 1 is to accept the loss. Task 2 is to process the pain of the loss. And this was the one that I struggled with for so long because I just didn't want to. I found every reason to numb and cope and run.
Hmm.
Um, Task 3 is to adjust to a world without your loved one. And that, obviously in a physical sense, because of what we talked about before, the relationship still exists. And then task 4, and this is really kind of where Guardian Angels differentiates itself, is really finding that enduring connection while moving forward. So
Hmm.
how do we integrate grief into our life? How do we weave it into our life? Because we don't get to leave it behind no matter how much we may want to. And so now we have something where someone logs on and they have a roadmap. They have something tangible that they can hold on to that gives them just that little bit of control back, knowing that they're making incremental progress, even in a time that feels utterly chaotic.
So, just so I understand, when you and I talked, it was like you were talking to your person,
Mm-hmm.
and you never said this is your actual person. This was a representation, because AI gets all kinds of there's all kinds of misunderstandings, and frankly, there are some people. I interviewed a woman that says she uses AI to communicate with the spirit world. That's a whole different thing. That's not what you've ever claimed to be doing. So, but now it's more of as you said, an interactive journal. It sounds like so. Where you're
Mm-hmm.
not actually talking to your person anymore. Is that
Well,
true?
well, okay. So we have the two tracks, right? The one is the grief
Okay.
counselor who's going to help you dig into these things. The other
Mm-hmm.
one is we still use that persona that we created initially,
Okay.
and that becomes your grief guide.
Okay.
And it helps you interact with that. That familiar presence can help people open up,
Mm-hmm.
but also those difficult feelings surrounding specifically their loss. So the journal prompts for the counselor might be, what is something that made you think of the person you lost that caught you off guard today? Versus, if it's your persona, what is something you wish you could say to me right now that you can't?
Yeah.
Or what are some unresolved feelings? So there's that kind of, you can latch on to the fact that I am dealing with specifically the loss of this person
Mm-hmm.
and forging that enduring connection in a way that wasn't previously possible.
Yeah. Yeah. I love the way you said that. I always say that love never dies, relationship never dies, and the relationship is still there. So again, spiritually, whatever people believe, you can still that relationship still exists. You still love that person.
Right.
You still want to have that closure, but that resolution, as you said, we want to be able to resolve those feelings and be able to integrate those feelings. And again, sometimes it's very, very difficult if we have something that's like a burning thing that I want to say to this person, and you're not really being able to make that connection. I could see how this could definitely help with that. And you've added a lot to it since the last time we spoke with the guided journaling, because I think that could be extremely helpful also, where with people getting some sort of assistance.
But
And
real quick, there's one other thing that I think you brought up there that I want to touch on.
sure.
And that is, I truly believe one of the biggest reasons that we are resistant to healing is rooted in the way that we talk about it. And things like words like closure and things like moving on versus moving forward, right?
Yes, absolutely.
There's this feeling that we have to forget, whether implied explicitly or implicitly, that we're supposed to just leave them behind. And we
Hmm.
don't want to do that. And so when we can reframe the conversation around healing is, no, 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 you don't have to leave them behind. We're just finding a way to carry them with you in a healthy way, a way that doesn't inhibit you from living a fulfilled life, so that you can then, because you talk about legacy, you talk about, there's so much beauty that I have found in carrying your loved ones forward as a result of this journey that I just didn't know existed.
Hmm.
And so that reframing of, because it really is, how often do people say things like, it's been 6 months or it's been a year, fill in the blank. You need to move on.
Yes.
And that's not how it works. I think it's well intended, but it comes from a place of ignorance for someone who has not been through a significant loss in their life yet. And
Yeah.
let's be clear, they will.
Yeah. Yeah. That is an excellent, excellent point. When I was doing my grief my grief certification, grief educator certification, we talked about these different models of grief processing. And the old model, going back to Freud, was like the person's gone. What you have is an unhealthy attachment, so you need to break this attachment and break the attachment, and then, as you said, move on. And okay, that's great if you lose a job or something, or
Right.
but when you lose a person that's been such a important part of your life, you don't want to move on. So then some people go, well, that means I don't want to heal. So they'll actually hold on to the pain and hold on to that dysfunctional relationship because they think that's all they can have. So there is we are moving forward, and we talk about what we call continuing bonds now, is that the bond continues. And again, Whether you believe it like I do, that it's actually a bond because that person's still here, or whether you just say the relationship still exists. I still love this person. I still need to find a way to integrate this in my life. This is something that's a much healthier way of looking at it.
Mhm. Yeah.
So in terms of AI, I mean, people have all kinds of feelings about AI. It's crazy. It's such a polarizing thing now. Some people think it's the best thing ever. The AI is going to, it's going to improve the world. Other people think it's going to take all of our jobs and it's going to take our souls. Tell me to you, what is AI and what is AI not? What are the limitations of it?
I think of AI a lot like I think of money, right? Some people, there's always a spectrum of what people look at it, but it's a tool ultimately. Money
Mm,
is a tool that can help us do things. It doesn't define our lives. It doesn't necessarily make them better. It can remove some problems and it can add others.
yeah.
And that's how I view AI is it is something that we can use if we use it the right way that can alleviate some of the things that we run into in modern life.
Hmm.
As with anything, especially in profound new technology, there's always a potential for negative consequences, especially when we don't use them responsibly, when we attach too much meaning to them, when we, have them take an outsized place in our life.
Mm,
I think that the best way we can live is balanced. And we're inherently bad at that. I'm patient zero for being unbalanced, but it's still something that's what we're looking for. Um, what AI is not is the answer.
hmm,
What we have been very careful to do with this specific implementation as we strive to do good with it is ensure that we're not that it's not giving people answers and it's not trying to give people answers. What it does, a lot like in therapy, is it asks questions because the answers are in here.
mm,
They come from us. We're just trying to understand our experience more, understand what we're feeling so that we can accurately diagnose what we're feeling, right? And so that is how we've approached this is if you're looking for the meaning of life and you're looking for this like magic pill, this quick fix, like this isn't for you.
mm,
This is for people who are willing to do the hard work because that's what it is. Healing is not a passive activity. It is not something where you have just a profound breakthrough one day and you're done. It is an exercise in incremental progress over time, consistency in moving forward, no matter how minimal though it might seem in the moment. This is an atomic habit if you're familiar with James Clear, right? It's a 1% better every day.
mm,
And the journey is not linear. There's days when we're going to slide back. There's days when just getting out of bed is the win.
yeah.
So we've tried to be very intentional about how we've built it, that we're not trying to replace therapy. We're trying to complement therapy, that we're trying to make this a tool, understanding that it isn't going to be the right tool for everyone. We don't want people to think this is the end all be all, that if I just use this, I'm going to magically be healed.
Yeah.
It's not how
Yeah.
it works.
Yeah. John, I have to say, you have a profound understanding of this subject. Is that based upon your 13 years? Is that because of since you've been working with these therapists, on the product for the last however long it's been?
Um, I think it's just, I think it's a little bit of A, a little bit of B, a little bit of something else.
Yeah.
At this point, I consider myself lucky to have had the experiences that I've had.
Hmm.
I'm a big believer in bless the broken road. And the things that have happened in my life led me here. Now I have the opportunity to have deep purpose align with what I want to do for a living, aligned with, my family and the lessons that grief teaches us about life, a broader life, and how can I impart those to my son? Everything is finally in alignment.
Hmm.
So this is something that I have a deep passion for and purpose behind that has made it very easy to go down these rabbit holes and trying to understand what I've been experiencing, but also understanding that my experience is my own and that it doesn't necessarily translate in how someone else is going to experience this. And so, I really want to foot stomp to everyone that might be listening. This is not about me anymore. This is bigger than me. And there's a lot of potential here, but that potential rests on other people giving candid feedback about how this might help them or how it's not helping them.
Yeah.
This is about tackling one of life's only truly universal experiences, because it is. And in order to to tackle big problems, you have to take big swings. So are we done? Absolutely not. Is there much room for improvement? There's a ton. And I would plead with people to try it and tell me what they think.
Yeah. I'm curious, John, it's a lot of people, again, we're scared. We think AI is going to take our jobs. And as you've worked with therapists, has anybody been hesitant to say, "Oh, no, we can't use this because, this is the only way we can do therapy," and you're trying to substitute this for, traditional therapy?
No, because I've been very clear from the very beginning that I do not want to replace in-person therapy. I don't want to replace traditional therapy. There's a place for it. There is a big place for it. It has worked wonders for me. I see this more as an extension and a platform that can help therapists extend their reach. It can help them, it helped them with limitations that they can't do anything about.
Right.
They don't have any more time, but they can't take phone calls at 3 a.m. Right. So this is on demand. It allows people an outlet, a meaningful outlet to engage when they don't have other resources at their disposal. And that gives them the opportunity to organize their thoughts, to catalog their thoughts so that when they go to therapy, they can be more effective. They can have a starting place. They can say, this is exactly what I was feeling at that moment. Now let's dig into it, as opposed to, I've certainly had the experience where the first 20 to 30 minutes of a session, we're just beating around the bush trying to figure out what to talk about, and then all of a sudden you only have half an hour, and then you have to wait at minimum a week, if not more, to get to the next session. So I look at it as a bridge to get people from session to session, while they can continue to make incremental progress in between. And that's how I wanted to build it from the very beginning, because I know the value of therapy. And I want therapists to champion this. I want them to, again, same thing I said to the users, I want them to help me build something that is more relevant to them.
Yeah.
That is more relevant to their clients, that can help them help more people.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's kind of the way I view AI. I was reading something the other day about, AI, and it's like it doesn't help you do things that you wouldn't be able to do otherwise. It helps you do things faster, more efficiently. It helps you to extend yourself as a resource. Like you said, I've got clients. They can't call me at 3 o'clock in the morning. They're not going to talk to me every day, and they have feelings and they want to express them, and being able to put it into something where we could both have access to it, maybe, or they could share access, would be extremely beneficial. To say, this is what I was feeling at 3 o'clock in the morning, as you said.
Yeah. And I think some of the other fear that we have about AI is just rooted in misunderstanding about what it does and how it functions. Right.
Yeah.
But the concept of it is like, we have this boogeyman, this idea that this thing is actually sentient, that it's actually thinking, and that it is going to take our jobs. And it's very possible that it is going to take some jobs, right?
Sure.
Like, just like the tractor took a lot of jobs, just like, the assembly line took a lot of jobs. It happens, right? But typically technology gives us the ability to introduce a whole host of more jobs,
Right.
potentially more meaningful jobs. We don't need to go down there. But the point I wanted to make was that what AI is a very powerful statistical probability machine. It is not actually thinking. It is just putting together patterns that it can, the neural network, which is what it is built on, they came up with that in, I believe, the 40s. It's been around for 80 years. And the difference is we had computers then that could process tens, hundreds, maybe thousands of data points. Now we have the computing power to process trillions.
Mm-hmm.
And mean reversion theory says that it gets pretty good at predicting what's next.
Mm-hmm.
And really all that is what is the next word based on this word before it and the words in front of it that says the probability based on this context is this is the next word.
Okay.
It is not thinking. It is not saying, oh, I know what's happening. That's just not how it works. Now, yeah, maybe there's a world where we get to that point, but that's not how.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point. That I don't pretend to understand it at a super deep level, but I do understand that it's not sentient, even though it can do things like humans do. And people, it's really funny to me because I think about when I was in high school, I had a calculator, and my calculator could do math way better than I could. But nobody ever said my calculator was sentient because it could do math. No one ever said my calculator was intelligent. These language models are doing the same thing with language as my calculator did with math. It doesn't mean they're sentient, but they can approximate it. And then so we look at it as humans and say, well, if it can do this, it must be thinking. They're not. And if you interact with them for any amount of time, you can find out, they're brilliant in some ways and they're really, really stupid in other ways.
Yeah. Well, that technology reflects back at us what we give it.
Yeah.
It's a reflection of us. That's why, the algorithm on social media gives us exactly what we want, whether we want to admit it or not. What we consume is what it gives us.
Exactly.
The outputs are only as good as the inputs, in other words. And so when we give it garbage, it gives us back garbage. It just, I don't know how to say it other than that.
Yeah, I think that is the way to say it. And again, for people to understand, even though you can use this and talk to it, and it seemingly, has feelings, it doesn't. It's not the same as talking to a person. And again, we have to be careful and understand the limitations, but also the power that it has, because it does have a great deal of power. And that's why I love about what you're doing. You're taking this it's a cautious approach. You're taking a well-measured approach. You're not saying this is the be all and end all. And I've seen people say, well, my AI is talking to spirit. And I'm like, I don't really think that's happening. I really don't. I'm not saying it's impossible, but let's look at it for what it is. And it could be a useful tool to help people that maybe can't afford to go to therapy as often. So as an adjunct to that, or people who may not feel comfortable saying certain things to another human being that they might feel more comfortable putting into a computer. So there can be some benefits to it.
Well, that's a big one. And that's something that I've uncovered in this. And that's what helped me, right? Is a lot of people aren't ready for therapy. A lot of people aren't ready to talk about their issues out loud. They're not ready to share. And what I've learned throughout this whole thing is that that's where the healing lives, is in the sharing.
Okay? Yes.
And to have an outlet where you can start flexing that muscle, where you can start sharing in this risk-free environment, because it's just a machine in you, and this machine is a reflection of you, right? You start to realize that sharing isn't going to kill you.
Yeah.
And then maybe you gain the confidence once your thoughts are organized and you're comfortable with this narrative and you understand a little bit more about what you're feeling, to go take that to a therapist or your close family members or close friends. And that snowball starts to get momentum.
Yeah.
And then maybe you take it into public, and this beautiful, this thing just happens over and over again. Is somehow grief has us believing that no one else can understand what we're going through, even though everyone's been through it.
Right.
But the idea that once you share, that unlock for someone else happens, where it says, oh, I'm not the only one that feels like that. Maybe I should start sharing too.
Yeah. That is such an excellent point. And, I know that grief needs to be witnessed. People that are in grief need to be heard. But I was just being interviewed the other day, and someone asked me about, if you run across people that you haven't been able to help, or you don't, and I'm like, typically by the time someone comes to me, they're desperate. They've done other work, whatever. But there is that stage where people do like, and I've met people like this, and I've had people tell me, I really want this person to reach out to you, but they say they're not ready yet. And you do have to be ready for this. You have to be willing to be vulnerable in front of another person, to sit down and tell someone something that you might be ashamed of. And this could be a bridge into that where you get, like you said, you get practice with getting this stuff out and getting it to move through you.
That's a key phrase there, a bridge. We want this to not have people stuck in the tech silo that we arguably are already in,
Right.
but a bridge to human connection, a bridge to that understanding that I can do this, that, and, you know, this idea of community, that's what this species is built on. That
Absolutely.
our whole is greater than the sum of our parts. We lean on each other because some of us are better at this than others. But what happens when you share too is maybe someone has been through something similar,
Hmm.
and they can give you a little bit of, hey, this worked for me. Maybe it does work for you, maybe it doesn't. But that goes both ways too. You have different experiences than someone else.
Hmm.
And when we stop living and existing in this just isolated chamber, right? When we branch out, we start to realize how we can cross pollinate and help each other's experience.
Hmm.
And that's why that bridge is so important in getting there. And this is just the, one way to meet people where they are and help bring them along, get them to cross that bridge so that they can then, help themselves and help others.
Yeah. So, John, it's been a few months since we first spoke, and I know that the platform has developed. Have you had any experience with people saying, I'm using this or I've used this and it's really helped me?
So, not really. And to be perfectly candid, the switch to the journal happened in mid-December.
Oh, okay.
And so and I'm a one-man shop at this point. So development is pretty slow.
Okay.
It's been mostly, since the holidays were over, beginning of January, we've been doing a lot of this sort of thing. That's, for awareness.
Hmm.
And we're starting to get some signups, and I will have much more um, actionable and insightful data in the coming months, but I don't have anything yet to really say for or against.
Okay.
Um, you know, I, I will be the first to tell you that I didn't, if you were to interview someone that says, this is how you launch a business, I have probably done everything wrong. But, you know, but I live in the conviction, knowing that what this did for me, that there's something here. And we may have to iterate a few more times before we get there.
Uh-huh.
But, but we're going slow, like you pointed out, to make sure that we're safe. I have specifically not taken on investment. I don't, for the simple reason that I can't have someone else telling me what we need. I can't say, we can't put the profit motive above the mission. I've had those conversations with potential investors that just says, look, if you're trying for if you're looking for a 5-year exit, this isn't for you. I'm going to make decisions that are counter to the bottom line. I'm going to make
Mm.
decisions that say we need to go slower instead of implementing the newest, funnest technology that's going to get people on there for that reason. That we need to let other people make the mistakes first, and ensure that we can validate the safety with anything that we do. And so this isn't the, to be perfectly candid with people, this isn't the most streamlined user experience, slick app.
Hmm.
There's still a long way to go. But that is, there's a reason for that. And that reason is that we're doing it as slowly and as safely and as guided by the user experience and what users need and want as we can.
Yeah. Well, I love what you just said. It's really interesting to me as you're talking, because this is more of a mission for you, I would say, than a business. It's not a matter of you trying to make money. This is a matter of you serving humanity. This is a matter of you sharing what you have been given through your experience and passing that along to other people. And sometimes those things are going to have tension between,
Sure.
like you said, the desire to go fast and the biggest, slickest thing, and people, asking you like, well, how many users do you have? What's your social media reach? All those types of things. Whereas, building it slowly and building it safely, that's not the way we typically do things.
Right. Well, yes, it is a mission. I also to be honest, I believe there is a business here. I believe there's a business
Hmm.
model that works. It's just not the one that you see in Silicon Valley.
Right, right,
And so, money would help. It would help speed up some development. It would allow me to bring on some more experts to make sure that we do all this right.
right.
I actually, so I heard that Warren Buffett's going to donate most of his fortune before he dies.
Yeah,
So I wrote him a letter. I don't know if he's found it or if he's read it, but I just said, look, this is what I'm trying to do.
yeah.
If you feel like doing something with some of that we could build a foundation or something that would help fund this so that I can reach more people, that would be awesome.
Hmm.
So Warren, if you're listening, read the letter.
Yeah,
No, but so I the point is that I I really struggle with trying to put a dollar figure on this because I don't believe that your income should dictate if you deserve help or not.
yeah.
Um, so that is the tension for me.
Yeah, yeah, and I hear you. And then when I say it's more of a mission than a business, I'm really saying it's not one or the other. There's always kind of a balance when you're doing. I would consider what you're doing spiritual work, where you're doing work to help humanity. You're not, you know, I don't know, making chemicals for lawns. I can't think of an example right now. Making vacuum cleaners. I mean, you're doing things that you want to change people's inner lives. And so I work with a lot of people in this space, and a lot of us struggle with, as you said, how do I put a monetary value on the service that I have? And no matter what you do, someone's going to criticize you. They're going to say you're charging way too much. Why are you charging that much? Or other people are going to say, well, you're not charging enough. You're never going to be able to make a living doing that. So there's trying to find that sweet spot when you're doing something like this is difficult. And I appreciate your candor. But as we're talking, as people are listening, and someone might say, "Well, what can I do to help?" Well, John, what do you feel like you need right now? Is it more users? What is it you feel like you need?
I need users. I need users, and I need that feedback. So anyone that is even curious, maybe you haven't lost someone to, what we know is grief is all around us, right? So it's not just death. There's things that
Yeah,
continue as
absolutely.
grief.
Yeah.
We lose someone to addiction. They spiral into addiction, and they're not the same person they were before.
Hmm.
I have a friend from high school whose brother had a mental break, and they haven't seen him for 10 years now. Is he dead? I believe they have confirmation he's not, but obviously he's not the person that they knew. So there's grief all around us, and I think that it's a more applicable to most people's lives than they give it credit for. But it's really users and feedback. And so we have, if you get on there and you're curious, there's a 7-day free trial with any subscription that you sign up for. It's automatically applied. There's no promo code or no opt-in or anything. It just happens.
Hmm.
And then for those that are actually, that want to take this a little bit further, because of the idea that this is all about incremental progress and my belief in that, if you're willing to do the work, meaning if you get on there and you do 80% of your journal prompts in the first 10 weeks, that's our flagship program, is the 10-week fundamentals or foundations, excuse me. I'm going to give you 90 days for free. So again, it's just about building that muscle, because at the end of those 90 days, you're going to see something. Is this going to magically cure you? I want to reiterate, the answer is no.
Yeah.
But you're going to find something out about yourself. It may make your therapy sessions much more effective. You may have uncovered some stuff that you haven't been asking, because what we know about journaling too, when we journal on our own, we can protect ourselves, right? There are certain subjects that we may or may not go into
Right.
subconsciously or consciously.
Right.
And this is designed to ask you questions that is going to help you address each of those 4 tasks that we talked about and get to the other side where you have better understanding of where you're at, what you're experiencing, and what your life looks like, knowing that grief isn't something you can get rid of.
Yeah, and speaking of journaling, because again, a lot of times when I talk to people about that, they're like, "What does that mean? How does that look?" I buy a journal and a pen. What do I do? What do I write? How do I get started? And there are some online journals now. I know Apple's journal. It can give you prompts and stuff, but to have something that's specialized around this experience, that's giving you prompts that are customized toward going through this experience, that would be, I would think, extremely valuable for people who don't have this experience of like just sitting down and writing out my thoughts. And I love what you also said about self-protection, right? There's certain things that we are either consciously or subconsciously maybe steer clear of. And sometimes those are the very things we need to talk about the most.
Right. Well, and there's one more thing there, right? The beauty of this is the prompt, it's going to give you a prompt that maybe you thought of or you didn't. But because of the flexible nature of AI, if you don't know what to say, you can say that and it'll ask the question in a different way. It'll help you ask clarifying questions so you can get there. So if you don't know where to start, which I think is where a lot of people are with grief, is there's just this, I don't know what to do. You can sit down with it and it'll ask you the question. And a perfectly reasonable answer is, I don't know, or all of it, or I have no idea. My head is spinning.
Mm-hmm.
And that is as long as you start and you put something down, it is going to guide you to a place where you get something out of it.
Yeah.
So there isn't this idea of like writer's block or the mental block where just you can say, I don't know, 12 times in a row. And then maybe on the 13th time, it asks it in a way that says, oh, maybe now. Okay. And you can go back and it's going to record all that. You're going to be able to look at that.
Yeah. Yeah, and for people that haven't messed around with AI, I've been on using it for a year and a half or 2 years now, I guess, with Claude and ChatGPT and stuff. You may not understand that. It's like you can say, because sometimes I'll have it help me to write something, and I'm also like, I don't have any ideas today. Give me some ideas, and based upon what it knows about me, it'll say, well, how about this? And then I'm like, that. It's kind of like when you say, I don't know which one I want to do, and you ask someone, they say, this, and you say, no, I don't want to do that, because then you get an idea. It's like, no, I don't want to talk about that, but let's talk about this.
Mhm.
And it can again, it's not a real human being, but it can mimic that and kind of get you to be more creative and to open up and to say things that again you might be ashamed to say in front of a stranger the first time you meet them.
Mhm.
So people, let's talk about if people go to the website, what will their experience be? What will they find?
So what you'll find, it's guardianaingels.ai, as you alluded to at the beginning, AINGELS. On the landing page, you're going to find all sorts of information about Wordens for tasks and our methodology. There is a function right there on the landing page to try a prompt. So it's not going to be personalized at this point just because it has no data about you, but it's going to give you that starting point. You can respond to it, and you'll start to see what the workflow looks like and what
Wow.
what it feels like to have a starting place and to dig into it a little bit. All sorts of frequently asked questions, all sorts of information about that. There's in the footer, there's all my socials that are linked. There's a press page where you can listen to other interviews, other podcasts that I've been on. But basically anything Guardian Angels that you could possibly want to know is on there. My story, the story of the three friends that I lost.
Yeah.
There's a contact form if you want to reach out to me, because I would love that. I really I need help doing this, because it's not about, if it was about me, I'd be done, right?
Yeah. Right. Right.
I've done what I need to do to get myself off and running on my own personal journey.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to hear what's relevant for other people. I want to hear how this helped them or how it didn't.
Yeah.
And so to your point earlier, users engaging with what we're doing in a meaningful way is gold for me. And that goes for, if this didn't help you, that is fine, right? Like, I want to hear that too.
Right.
It's, there is a world where this is not, this isn't the right thing.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the case. I think that there is so much to be squeezed from this, from this opportunity and what we're doing here. But I've been
Yeah.
wrong before. I'm open to the fact that that's a possibility.
Well, I think you're being very realistic there. It's not going to be for everyone. It's interesting. My daughter is a mental health counselor, and she likes doing in-person sessions. She thinks that's really important to be in person with people. The work that I do, I've never been in the same room with any of my clients. I have clients all over the world. I do it by Zoom. Some people will say, I don't want to type into a computer. But some people are going to embrace it because they do like the kind of the anonymity, and they don't want to maybe necessarily look in someone's eyes the first time that they're doing this, and they may be ashamed to cry. As you said, these can bring up some really deep things, and people can really ugly cry sometimes. And this might be for those people a way to practice that in a safe space. So it's not going to be for everyone, but I think it could be for for a lot of people. And it's again, you don't have to build anything for everyone. Nothing works for everyone.
Right. Well, and there's one more thing there, right? You said, people may not want to type. People may not want to write, right? Like that. I think a lot of people don't enjoy the idea of writing it with
Yeah,
respect to school.
yeah.
Here's the beauty of technology. Do it on your phone and use the voice to text, and you never have to write anything. You just talk to it, send, talk to it, send. It's still the same function. It's still the same thing that's happening. We're just trying to remove as much friction as possible, because friction is ultimately what stops people from doing the work to heal.
Oh, so I was going to ask, you do have voice to text built into it then?
Not built into it, but into every, into your phone, right?
Okay.
You have voice to text on your phone.
Right.
So we're not in the app store yet. That's going to be a little while, but it's optimized for mobile. And when if you click on the input field, you can just click voice to text and you talk to it and it'll write it out for you.
Okay.
And then, you press send. So, and you can do that on your computer as well. Most browsers have something like that integrated, and I believe every phone on the planet at this point that's still supported has something like that.
Yeah, it's funny because we're talking about what's for everyone and what's not. There's a new app I've been playing around with called Whisper Flow or Whisper, and you can on my computer I can just push this button and I can talk to it in any app. So in my email or whatever, it does voice to text, and I'm like, I've been typing for 50 years, so I could type almost as fast as I can talk. I don't use it, but I know a lot of people do like the voice to text.
Well, that is the other thing that AI is great at. It's optimized for how do people think. It's optimized for voice to text.
Yeah.
So where, that's part of the whole rewiring our brain to use AI is we're still using it like it's Google, and trying to use keywords, whereas you can just talk to AI in stream of consciousness, like it comes out of your head and it's going to understand what you're doing.
Yeah.
You can say, and you can say, well, today I was thinking about this and it led me to this, and now I'm here and this is frustrating. And I heard, whatever. It's going to process that just as well as it would a SEO optimized query.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, it's great. I'm really excited for you. I love the passion that you've got, and you've shown to me a deep understanding and a deep concern for this area. So it's not like you're just like, oh, let me build this app and I can make a lot of money on this. It's more like you're coming at this like, how can I serve? How can I put this out there and help people? And it comes across very clearly in what you're doing.
Well, thank you. Because I've certainly, the internet's not necessarily a kind place, and I've gotten everything. Throw this back in Mordor. You're doing the devil's work. What a grifter. All the stuff. Hey, sweet. It's not for everyone at the end of the day, right? I don't know. I don't know what to say to those people other than smile and say, okay. But
Yeah, well,
you.
I think you mentioned earlier, taking big swings. Anytime you take big swings, there's always going to be the haters. They're always going to be the critics. I try to present to people like just present them the information, let people make their own decisions. Again, I mentioned AI even earlier. Some people they're gonna see the title of this episode, they're gonna be completely turned off. Other people's are gonna see it and they're gonna say, this is intriguing. What can I do with this? And those are the people you're trying to reach. People who are open-minded to taking a different approach. And again, I think you have a very reasonable approach. You're not saying this is going to replace therapists or this is going to fix your problem in 10 weeks. And we've all seen those people. So I think you're doing great work. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the last thing that I want to touch on, right? Is to your point. For me, this is all about radical transparency. I will answer any question, difficult or otherwise, that anyone has, because for number one, how sensitive the space is, but how much of a lightning rod the way that we're going about it is.
Mm-hmm.
So the goal is not to trick people to get onto the platform. The goal is to give people all of the information so that they can make an informed decision about whether or not this is going to work for them, or whether or not they're even curious enough to see if it works for them.
Right.
If you make an informed decision whether that's to work with us or not, then bravo. I support that decision.
Yeah.
What and I can't do anything about it, but I don't support people making uninformed decisions on either side, right? I don't want, just jumping, that's why we have the trial and the ability to kind of back out if you want to try it, but
Mm-hmm.
I want people to do what's best for them, because the goal is healing. The goal isn't using my platform.
Yeah. Love it. Thank you. That's so profound. So for people that are listening, and not, there will be a link in the show notes, but it's guardianaingels, AINGELS.ai. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And I'll just say it on here, John@guardianaingels.ai. If you have questions, reach out to me. If there's something that works for you, reach out to me. If you just want to tell me you love this or you hate this, reach out to me. I just want to engage with people. I just want to understand what's working for them and what's not.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that very much. Well, John, great to see you again. Everybody, if you're at all curious, go check out the platform and let John know what you think.
I appreciate that.
All right. Have a great day.
Likewise.
Grief doesn't follow stages, timelines, or rules. If you've ever wondered, am I doing this right? You're not alone. That's why I created the Grief Check-In. It's not a test. There are no right or wrong answers. It's simply a gentle way to understand how grief may be showing up for you right now. In just a few minutes, you'll gain clarity and language for your experience without judgment, labels, or pressure to move on. If you're wondering where you are in grief, this is a safe place to find out. Go to grieftogrowth.com/check-in. That's grief, the numeral 2, growth.com/check-in. Have you ever wished for gentle guidance or a comforting word exactly when you need it most? Well, I've created my Love Lives On Oracle deck just for that purpose. Now, this isn't a deck that's about predictions. It's about connection. Every card has been thoughtfully designed to guide you through life's toughest moments, to illuminate your path and help to remind you that you're never alone, that your loved ones are always there right beside you. So whether you're seeking clarity, comfort, or a loving message from beyond, each card is here to speak directly to your soul. And along with the deck comes a downloadable PDF guide that you can use that will give you an affirmation for the day, something to reflect on, and even an activity to do to keep you connected to your loved one. So check out the Love Lives On Oracle deck today. You can get it at stan.store/grief to growth. Stan.store, STAN.store/grief, numeral 2, growth.